Hey everyone, Slambo here. Got another thread I'm hopping onto. This one is the soundtrack tag, part 2 from Red Rum Records. There were 10 questions to answer, and I've made a good show of it, and I'm kind of surprised that I'm probably not going to be able to finish all of them, and I will talk about why once we get down to those. So the first question on the list is the oldest by year, it says, and I'm assuming that means the year of release, the oldest soundtrack or score in the collection. Well, according to Discogs, the oldest one I've got in our collection is this one, Walt Disney's 101 Dalmatians in Story and Song. This was released in 1963. So on the back we've got scenes from the movie. And yeah, there's Cruella de Vil. So I saw the trailer for the new Cruella movie recently, and that looks like a lot of fun. So I want to go see that one as soon as that comes out. Probably not going to be able to get to it pretty quickly, but that's going to be on my list of things to watch. Question number 2, a soundtrack that needs a reissue or the first time on vinyl release. Well, the one that I'm going to pick is one that's on my want list and has been on my want list for a long time, and that's the soundtrack to The Forbidden Zone, featuring Danny Elfman and the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo before it became actually just Oingo Boingo. I grew up in Los Angeles, and Oingo Boingo was a big part of my rock nurturing, I guess, if you want to call it that. So and of course, Pico and Sepulveda appears quite prominently in the soundtrack, and then there's a couple of other songs in there that I really enjoyed, that were 20s and 30s era, that they just redid for the movie. There's another version of Minnie the Moocher with Danny Elfman singing the lead song on there. So that's the one that's on my list for a reissue. I know that there are copies of it out there that I just haven't been able to get yet. I've been hoping to find it in the wild, just haven't been that lucky. I think at one of these days I'm just going to have to break down and just order it from someone who actually has a copy. So the next thing on the list is the most valuable soundtrack or score in your collection. Can be monetary or sentimental value. I'm going to go with monetary value on this one based on what Discogs says. And what Discogs says is my most valuable soundtrack is this one, Paul McCartney, Give My Regards to Broad Street. The median on Discogs right now, it says $24, and the maximum it says $49. This is near the top of my list of most valuable monetary records and recordings according to Discogs. Of course, they've only got the data from things that sell on Discogs itself, so it might be something else, but that's the metric that I was going with because it was the easiest one to look at. The favorite bargain bin soundtrack or score, one you can usually find pretty cheap. I'm going to go with one that I know got pressed a lot, the Blues Brothers soundtrack. This is a movie that we loved as teenagers growing up. I've got a couple of other Blues Brothers records in my collection. I know I've shown at least one in a previous video, but this one is the actual movie soundtrack. I don't have the sequel movie soundtrack yet. I'm hoping to pick that up someday. Next one, favorite colored soundtrack or score in your collection. I don't have any soundtracks or scores that are on anything but black vinyl or just a CD. However, yesterday when I was putting in an order for some new inner sleeves and outer protective sleeves, I saw the list of specials on Amazon included Earth Girls Are Easy for less than $20 on orange vinyl. I almost put that into my cart right then, but I'd already spent enough this month with the trip I did down toward Lancaster earlier this week and my birthday haul at the start of the month. So I had to let that one pass. But that one's on my list of I'll get that eventually. So none yet, but almost got one last night. So favorite artwork or on the jacket or favorite artwork or jacket on a soundtrack album. I'm going to go with one that I showed in another episode or another video recently, the Pirates of the Caribbean. I just love this picture. It's just so evocative of what's happening on the ride. It looks like the ride, and everything on it reminds me of different parts of the ride. So that's my pick for my favorite artwork on a soundtrack cover. The next question, number 7, the most underrated score composer in your opinion, is one that I don't hear enough about, but I've already mentioned him today, and that's, of course, Danny Elfman. He does a lot of the work with, oh shoot, I'm blanking on the director's name. The guy who directed Edward Scissorhands and others, Tim Burton. See, if I talk it out enough, I always come up to it. So he's done a lot of Tim Burton's movie scores. He's done some other scores for even bigger movies, and he's done a few of the Batman movies. He's done Big Fish. He's done so many others. If you just look him up on IMDb, his list just keeps going and going and going. He's done so many movie scores that it's hard to keep up sometimes, and that's one that I need to really up my game in my collection. But he's my favorite for a movie score composer. Your favorite song from a soundtrack or score that is your jam is question number 8. And I'm going to go with the Beatles, the Help soundtrack. There's a song on here that I really love whenever it comes on, either Sirius or on the radio. If I'm alone in my car, I'm cranking it up and I'm screaming along with it. And that's You're Gonna Lose That Girl. There it is right down there at the bottom. I just love the melodies and harmonies in that, and it's just so fun to sing along with. I just turn it up and just belt it out. Let's see, question number 9. This is another one that I wasn't able to find an example in my collection. The question is 2 different soundtracks or scores that use different versions of the same song. The example shows one soundtrack using an original song and the second soundtrack using a cover of that song. I don't know because I wasn't able to find any examples in my collection. However, I think it's pretty likely that something from the Blues Brothers or something from Paul McCartney, something from one of those albums was probably covered in another movie. But I'm going to go with something off of the Commitment soundtrack. It's exceptionally likely that these songs were used in other movies because the Commitment soundtrack is the band in the movie singing all of the covers. And these are songs that lots of us know. It starts off with Mustang Sally, Take Me to the River, which of course is a Talking Heads song. The Dark End of the Street, Destination Anywhere, Try a Little Tenderness. That's a pretty popular song, and I'm sure it's been in another movie. Mr. Pitiful, In the Midnight Hour, Bye Bye Baby, and Slip Away, and a couple of others on there. At least one of these must have been used in another movie. If not, and I'd be surprised if they weren't, something off of UHF, Weird Al's movie, especially the Hot Rocks Polka, which is a polka medley of Rolling Stones hits. So I couldn't find examples specifically out of my collection, but something off of one of these 2 is my guess. The last question on the list, number 10, a soundtrack that you could part with either because of condition or that you don't listen to or never have, to be honest. Well, this is one that I've rarely listened to. I could part with it, partly because of the cover. It's a plain promo cover. This is for Made in USA. And the biggest reason I'm keeping it right now is because it's got, over here on side B, it's got Mojo Nixon and Skid Roper doing I Hate Banks. So that song fits into my comedy collection. So this is going to stay in my collection, but if I had to give up one soundtrack, this would be it, just because the cover. So those are my answers to the soundtrack tag for 2021. There's a bonus question to tag 3 other soundtrack nuts who should do a response. The ones that I know of already have done a response, so tagging them again wouldn't do me much good. So I'm going to tag all 32 of my current subscribers. Make a video showing soundtracks out of your collection. So there's 32 tags rather than 3. See what you can do with that. I had fun finding these out of my collection and researching a little bit more. That's what I've got today. See you next time.